Hey, what's up? My name is Hugo Fowler, and this is a breakdown of my new song called Different. Alright, let's break it down. So, we have the intro, and I'll just play a little bit of it. The song derives from this electric guitar riff. I really wanted to go with like an old school, like late 2000s indie kind of thing. So that's the riff. So let's break it down. Starting with the guitar, lead guitar here, we have let's see the chain. We have a noise gate, a pedal board, just a little bit of compression going on, and guitar rig, which is really, really great. It is by Native Instruments, one of my favorites these days. It's been really great to use. Yeah, I'm doing this supercharger GT thing, which is cool, and the Doppel filter, Doppel filter, of course. Doppel, my God, Doppel filter. Yeah, it adds a lot. So let's hear it without some of this thing. So it's just a plugged straight into my Apollo Twin here, interface. Yeah, that was before, so it's fun, but it's not much going on. Add this on. Just makes it warbly and distorted and really upfront in your face, which I like. And then I just kind of calmed it down. I got an EQ in here, took a lot of the lows out, brought it into the center of the mix because it's sort of the main thing going on. Cut out the highs, they were a little bit too much. And then I compressed it. Yeah, I compressed it a decent amount. Just so that riff is always... It's not doing much, but... And then the Pro Q3. Really taking off any low end that I don't need. And then a resonant frequency here that I took out. And then... Alright, one of my favorite Logic Pro plugins is this stereo spread plugin. I put it on every main guitar that I have in my mixes now, and it just is the perfect thing to widen your guitar without having to record a bunch of different guitars. So here's without it. If you have headphones, you'll be able to hear. And then with it, so different. It really stands out in the mix. I usually just kind of cut off the low end a little bit and just kind of move this bar around until it kind of works with the overall mix. And then we have guitar left, which same exact stuff going on as our lead, but yeah, same compression, everything. But I put a sample delay on it and delaying it to the left side, since it's on the left side, just delaying it just a little bit. So that way I do the same thing to the right guitar. The riff is even just a little bit different, just to kind of create some interest, I think. And it separates the guitar because it's not the same riff, you know, so, but close. And then a sample delay on that, so delay right. It's really useful if you have a lot of guitars going on to start to use a sample delay on any of the ones that aren't your center, and it really creates even more space, which is nice. And then I have this kind of building guitar, kind of the strokes sort of thing, I think. Not even using this. So this is probably just this Maybe just a little bit less. Yeah, less of the doppelganger. A lot of saturation. Yeah. And a sample delay on this on both sides. And then the guitars together. Kind of fills out the space, but you can kind of hear each one still, which is the goal. I usually don't record that many guitars because I feel like if you can really beef up the ones that you do have, you can go a long way with that, and in the end it's going to be so much easier to mix. So, and that's what I like. Easier mixes actually get done, so keep that in mind. There's this other little chug guitar chug. Let's hear it. This is a rhythmic element, you know. I think it comes in the chorus as well to kind of beef things up, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. It just kind of keeps the drive going, which is cool. All right. Cool, so that's guitar. I'll save the vocals. So we can check out the bass. The bass is doing a lot of similar things. I kind of just wanted to match it with the kind of simple drums that we have going on. So actually, let's maybe start with the drums. Yeah, very fun summer kind of fun track, right? And then I wanted the bass to kind of match that. Because there's nothing better than a tight drum and bass section, and then the guitars can kind of just go wild in the high end, mid range and stuff. So I think it always sounds cool. So let's check out the bass here. The chorus bass is actually pretty fun. You hear that? My bass is like so crackly. I'm so sorry. All right, I put a noise gate on it, like I do with most stuff in general. And then I have a lot of EQ going on right off the bat. I think I did this after I did everything. And then in Pro Q3, taking out right where the kick is happening. So dipping that frequency out so I can let the kick speak, and also side chaining it to the kick as well. So it really ducks every time that kick happens. It made sense for this mix. And then a compressor. Kind of the same things going on. I'll turn on the limiter and make sure that the bass never peaks, which is helpful. And then Chroma Glow. This is a new plugin from Logic. It just adds a tiny bit of more buzz, and a bit of more distortion, slightly. It worked in the context of the mix. It brought it out just that much more. It felt warm. I am sidechaining it to what I like to do a lot with the drums and the bass is I will make a bus channel and I'll put an EQ on it first, and I will cut all the low end out because I'm going to be mixing the low end from the source itself because it's easier for me. And then I will put a decapitator plugin, which is just the juiciest, best thing ever. I will put that on, and I will mix the drums and the drums and the bass into that channel. And it usually just beefs up the bass and the drums in the mix overall like so much and just makes it kind of stand out. So maybe we can hear these with, here's without it's a bit more flat. with, it's probably hard to tell, but it's just kind of poking through the mix just that much more. Especially once you get everything in there, you can really start to tell that it's working. It's working for us. And then I have this hi-hat sample. I think it's a splice sample, and I basically just kind of cut it up, made it work for my beat, kind of made sure it was in the swing of things. And because you don't want to just throw in a hi-hat sample and just hope it works. You really want to like cut out the best parts of it, even if it's a loop, and then move other things around just so you can get the vibe of like what it would be like to have your favorite hi-hat in there, if that makes sense. And then the drums, let's see what's on the drums. I just do splice samples. I will throw them in, and I will throw in a kick, a couple snares, at least 2 or 3 snares to kind of stack layers onto itself to really make the snare stand out. And then I'll do some claps. I might put a tom on here, but sometimes I'll do that separately too. I'll usually do 2 kicks, at least 2 snares. So the drums. Yeah, so just channel EQ, taking a little bit out of this end. It seems like it's a little sizzly. Spread out the low end just a teeny bit and the super high end a little bit. That's one thing in general that you can do with drums, is kind of taking out somewhere in the middle that has too much buildup in your song, and then just lifting the ends, lifting the very, very bottom and the very top, and it kind of out without just turning the volume up. It kind of helps, but it also keeps it from getting in the way of everything else in your mix usually. All right, and then I put on this Native Instruments solid bus comp. This thing is absolutely incredible. So let me play it without that. Not the worst, but with so much more beefy. Yeah. And then a decapitator plugin on top of that. So we can see really make a big kit, and then the chorus comes in, right? Without. Not as sizzly. Really helps the low end too. And then compressor. Just a little bit of compression, it looks like. Just to catch any of the crazy peaks that are going to inevitably happen after you put a decapitator plug in, the solid bus comp, everything kind of adds up. So you want to make sure to just catch anything. I would actually probably turn the limiter on and do one of these, but it's already out, so whatever. Next time. Okay, I do have this synth element, which is actually fun too, so maybe I'll show you the synth. Here it is. So this was originally, I bounced it down to audio because it's a little bit more pliable that way, but we have this Juno 6 emulation, which just works so well. It's such a good keyboard emulator. It's incredible. Yeah. It want no work for us today. That's fine. You can hear it here. So it's got the chorus, it's got everything. I got this on Etsy of all places. Super weird, but yeah, I love the TAL-UNOLX. It's great. And then I EQ'd it. Took the low end out, don't need all that. And put a space designer on there, a little reverb. It goes a long way. And then I put a pan man sound toys, kind of give it this motion, right? A little bit more rhythmic than just, so it gives it some movement, which we love. We love to move around as I sit solemnly in this chair. Okay, so kind of hear some of those elements together so far. Might be fun. The chorus. Percussion down here. Yeah, so let's get into the percussion. This is just a Logic sampler percussion track that kind of makes it for you, which is cool. Like a virtual player, as it were. EQ, low cut, big surprise, compressor, compressing it quite a bit, and then putting some distortion on it. Some of this like studio distortion is kind of cool. This probably already came like this, but a little delay, which is always good to spread it out. That's all I put on there. You can hear that. It just gives you these live instruments and these things that I don't really have in the studio. I guess I have a tambourine, but it's so loud. God, it's loud. Okay, and then I have this guitar effect, which I really liked. I was recording the guitar, or the guitar was on while this drum beat was playing, and the guitar itself, the pickup, picked this weird sound up, so I kind of put it in the song. So maybe you can hear it. You can hear that's the pickup of the guitar picking up the beat that was playing through the speakers at the time. It sounds like Daffy Duck, like trying to beatbox or something. But in the context of things, it's pretty fun. I just thought it kind of added something fun to the drums. And then I have just a splice sample crash here. Okay. And then more crash. Yeah, and mostly just EQ that and take a little bit out of the high end, turn it way down. Sometimes I'll put a reverb on it if I want the tail to be longer. The sound kind of helps separate them too if one of them has a reverb. And then reverse, which is fun. Oh. Maybe it was reverse at one point, but not anymore. Not today. Just another crash. Yeah, it kind of just helps fill things out. So here it is. Here's the reverse down here. I just have that kind of going through the chorus and into all the major sections. It's just a reversed symbol. Easy as that. Just lay it all over the place. I ain't afraid to do it. And then this drum effect moment where I think I bounced out the drums and then have them sort of, and I have this remix plugin which I like to do, and I will put, basically I like to do this, I like to go to touch, and then I will play the plugin live as the beat is going, so you can see some of the things that I was already doing. And then that just kind of, yeah, because before without it, it just sounds like just a normal little beat, right? But with the remix plugin, it gives us this A lot of fun stuff going on. Yeah, right. So that's cool. That's a little moment right before the guitar solo, I believe. And I guess we didn't check that out. Guitar solo goes in here. Noise gate, always and forever. Pedal board, not using it. So loud. Guitar rig. I have the supercharger. I have the Doppler filter. And then I put a drive on it and a screamer just to really make it sound kind of crazy. Really make it stand out in the mix. Channel EQ. EQing it pretty hardcore. Compressor. And tape delay, which is great. Kind of give it some space. That isn't a reverb, because I didn't really necessarily want to put a bunch of reverb on it. Delayed it. Sample delay. Exciter, which is just takes it to that next level of just sticking out of the mix without it. It does a surprising amount, right? With secretly great plugin to make things push out in your mix for sure, without adding volume necessarily. And then a multipressor, which I thought I use a lot of vocals, but yeah, so I have that, and it's just compressing these areas of the guitar. A lot of guitars going on in this moment. The chug is probably too loud. Last thing we're gonna hit is the vocals, the vocals. All right, so here is actually verse. It's all labeled great. So we have. Is no one awake? Driving, the lyrics here, which always helpful. I like Logic for that. I'm sure the does have it. Yeah, so we have our first one, and hella pitch correction. Actually, I did the vocals with this mic, kind of like held it down. It makes it kind of a crazy sound. So you got the pitch correction because we all need it. It's okay. We got this great EQ, a Logic stock EQ. It really keeps things simple, which I think is the key to getting the vocals to sit right, is really just being simple about it and not trying to do anything too crazy and letting the vocals speak for themselves, you know. Multipressor to control the things going on, make sure there's, you know, usually it's this area, this like 200 to or 150 to like 1,000. It just like things spike all the time, and it just gives you that mid-rangey weird kind of feeling. So this is a great plugin to control all that, but not compress everything all the time, because you still want your high end. And then a compressor, doing not a crazy amount, but compressing it certainly. And then we have de-esser, exciter. We have, which is always great. You just know how much without. Is no one awake, driving, looking down, fixate on the things that can't be controlled. Really brings it up front, which I like. And then gain plugin. So basically, I put this on, so I will see what the volume is of the vocal without all of those plugins beforehand, and then I will put the gain on and see and try to get the level match of what the vocals were before I put all these plugins on, so I'm not tricking myself into thinking that I'm taking away or adding a bunch of volume. So it's just the same volume by the time I get to this point. And then a lot of times I'll put a tape delay, but I have a couple different takes, so it just was starting to sound messy probably. Then I have the silver verb, and then the flanger, which just kind of makes it that warble, crazy sound without. Why is no one awake? Still wobbly because the pitch correction is really working. That can't be controlled. Experimenting with yourself is fine. I think it's cool. Gives a psychedelic kind of vibe, and then very similar things happening on the left vocal. Just a little shit ton of reverb, apparently. Yeah, that's a lot of reverb. A lot of reverb, pal. That's a little bit more of a room tone. But yeah, same deal. Pitch correction, the console, like do a high, low cut, and then just figure out what sounds good. Use your ears for that plugin. It forces you. Yeah, tape delay. Alright, and I have these other harmonies that all kind of use the same thing. Oh man, what a terrible vocal there. Made it in the cut though somehow. Pitch correction couldn't help that. Let's see if this one's just as bad. That's better. Yeah, that's fun. And then I have this long, so I have the same pitch correction, channel EQ, a little compressor, same stuff going on here, just this other harmony. We listen to that. These are just like on certain words. Yeah, give you that extra high bit. Yeah, it's fun, accentuate that moment, and then you have this kind of long. Super long-tailed, crazy vocal, kind of spacing everything out. Well, I mean, it's so fun to do that. It adds space. Yeah, so, and then I master it. I go into Ozone, and we will do, I guess for this one, I did a master rebalance. I just kind of brought up the bass a little bit. And I will do this EQ, which kind of just controls everything. This was what it told me to do. I kind of like it can study your track, you can put it through and it'll learn your track or whatever. And this was like, you have no high end. And I'm like, I'm sorry. And then I do another EQ where I go mid and side bands. I'll go to the side and cut out the lows on the side, and I'll bring out the highs on the side, so that you're not just getting all this low rumble from the side. It really makes it feel much more clean. And then I took out just a little bit of these as well because it was a little too high for my taste. And then Imager just needed some widening on the top end. And then Stabilizer's excellent, catching all those peaks and making it sound so much better. Without, with, just brings it forward and cuts things you don't need and brings things forward. Pretty cool. And then Dynamic EQ, still cutting out some of these things, probably from the guitar and the vocals. It just starts to get really, I don't want to say nasally, but sure, like shrill in these areas, honky. Exciter, which is great, and then not really doing that much. A tiny bit in the low end and a tiny bit in the very high end. All these things kind of just are tiny incremental changes when you're mastering. You want to do most of the work in the mix. And then compressing a little bit of low cut, and I'm not compressing those 3K kind of sharp guitar riffs happening as much. Then dynamics, just making sure that all of these are not going above. I did negative 0.9. It's usually negative 1 for a lot of the commercial stuff that I do, but let's go crazy. And then vintage tape, it really makes things sound a little bit warmer, really does. Just a tiny bit can go a long way. Low emphasis, maximizer just to basically get it to the volume that I need it to be at. Totally fine. Turn up the gain. I make sure that true peak is on, and then negative 0.1, so nothing can get past negative 0.1. Upward compression if I need it. I do this in tandem with the multimeter in Logic, and this is definitely learned this from Dave Kropf at the 52 Qs. People over there making sync music and such. It's really cool. He's great, and I've learned a lot from him. But yeah, this is what he uses as well to kind of like look at tracks and stuff, and it really tells you everything you need to know. You want to make sure your slope is overall. Low end is a little bit more than your high end. You kind of want it to be, the low sounds need to be louder than the high sounds, because we hear high sounds more than we do low sounds. So the low sounds must be louder. So your mix wants to be up in a kind of a slope like this. Not like crazy, but it does kind of want to be in a gradual line down. So you look for that, and you look for the peaks. Keep pressing things and pushing things up until you get your desired levels, and the way it sort of sounds too, because like louder isn't really better. Sometimes a track might need to be a couple decibels down just to really get into the vibe of it. Not every track needs to be super loud. I think last Billie Eilish album, some of the tracks aren't super crazy loud, which it makes me happy, because the loudness wars may be coming to a close, but who knows. And then a vintage limiter on here, which is super fun. It just really is that finishing sauce. It does quite a bit, so it's still a good volume, but you gotta limit it. Tube character, I think that worked for this song really well, because everything already kind of started sounding pretty analog, as at least I tried it to sound that way. And yeah, I wanted to make sure it wasn't above negative 1, and it was maybe like not hitting any more than like negative 10 lefts, which is pretty loud. I probably made this one too loud, but it's fun. And yeah, that is freaking different. Thank you for watching.